Not since the WPA or Model City investments has it seemed like so much federal money has gone directly to towns and cities. These funds will help them with infrastructure issues and more. But they are not a perfect remedy for all that ails towns and cities. Hamden, with a new administration led by Mayor Lauren Garrett, is looking into projects that will help address the town's infrastructure needs using federal funds, while at the same time asking how other issues like the property tax will have to be approached at the local level to ensure Connecticut's future. Mayor Garrett joins us this week on the Municipal Voice to discuss these topics and more. We'd like to thank our premier sponsors, Digital Back Office Palo Alto Networks. Check them out at digitalbackoffice.com or paloaltonetworks.com, as well as our sponsors at Gateway and Housatonic Community Colleges. The Municipal Voice is the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities podcast in collaboration with WNHH LP 103.5 FM. I'm your host, Matt Ford. As always, be sure to give us a like and let us know what you're thinking in the comments. CCN's Municipal Voice podcast continues to present a key forum on important state and local issues. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the consensus views of CCM or member municipal leaders. Mayor Garrett, thank you for joining us today.
You're very welcome. Glad to be here.
We're in the middle of a transformative period in what feels like all of America with the COVID pandemic and also the federal relief funds associated with that. It seems like some funds are going to be spent on what you might call strictly kind of relief projects like testing and things like that. And some other things might go to things that probably should have already been repaired, like some bridges and roads. And then some of it will also go to things that will kind of facilitate the new normal, things like broadband infrastructure. How does Hamden decide what needs to be done? What does that decision process look like?
Well, obviously, we need all of those things. And what we're doing right now, we've had a couple of community meetings on Zoom and in person. We need to have more because we want as much feedback as possible. We're assembling all of the different ideas out there, and we're working with the Legislative Council so that we can all come to an agreement about our priorities and determine what gets funded.
And have you begun to use any American Rescue Plan funds on projects?
So the previous administration budgeted for revenue loss. And so the first tranche, which was about $6 million, was used in the previous budget. We have not done any projects yet. So obviously the clock is ticking, but we're just making sure that we're working with our council members benefit out of the money that we have. So we were allotted $24 million. And like I said, $6 million was already spent. So that leaves us with $18 million. And, my goal is to do some infrastructure, some technology infrastructure with this. In order to even have hybrid meetings with our legislative council, we really need an investment in technology so that we can have hybrid meetings, which I think will be used in the future. I think one of the things about the pandemic that we've all realized is being able to Zoom into a meeting definitely has its advantages. Yeah. So we want to make sure that our council members are able to continue to do that. People work jobs and travel and still want to be able to be a council member and participate in the community. Moms who are at home with their kids, want to be able to watch a meeting and not have to drive into our Memorial Town Hall to be able to watch a council meeting. They can do it from the comfort of their couch.
Definitely. So hopefully in the future we won't be limited to just that, but it'll always be an option for people going forward, which is
absolutely,
which is great in a lot of ways. So I was reading recently that you're getting some state aid funds to fix areas around Lake Whitney. And that area I know is also getting some funds from the Infrastructure Act going towards rebuilding the dam over there.
Yes.
What's the town's role in that project? And as part of the kind of greater East Rock Park area, do you envision kind of increased use of your areas because of the stuff that's going on in the rest of it?
So there are a couple different ideas floating around right now. Obviously, New Haven has a road diet that we're working on, and we want to extend that up Whitney Avenue through Spring Glen. So that definitely would go through the Lake Whitney area. And Regional Water Authority has their dam project. And so, we might have just some low-level kind of involvement there, signing off on some permits, that kind of thing. But the bulk of that project lies on the Regional Water Authority. There are some sidewalks that are being put in over near Eli Whitney Park, which the residents over there are thrilled about. So there's a lot that's really going on. Oh, and Davis Street is getting a connectivity grant for sidewalks. I want to increase pedestrian mobility. So I think that the road diet is perfect for that, and obviously any kind of sidewalk connectivity project.
Yeah, that'll be really cool.
I think so.
Are there any
Yep.
other kind of infrastructure projects that you'd like to see going on in Hamden in the near future?
Well, we have several bridge projects that are going on. Obviously, we get a lot of 80/20 grants. We get the projects where the state pays for the cost of the project. We just have to pay for the design work. So there's a lot of that going on. Another sidewalk connectivity grant. I want to use some of the infrastructure money to pay for sewers north of Mount Carmel on Whitney Avenue. And then we also are working to put there an animal shelter regional facility in New Haven. And I think that's also an opportunity to money, particularly because it's a regional project.
I think regionalism is big for everybody right now. It's, with 169 towns, people are looking for ways to work together to save money. Hamden has some issues that it needs to deal with. Upon entering office, you had said that the tactic of kicking the can down the road was no longer working. And part of the problem there was that Hamden has one of the highest debt ratios per capita. How did Hamden get there, and what are some of the solutions you're looking at to start dealing with that?
Sure. So, one of the big issues that came up was our pension. For decades, Hamden wasn't paying into the pension that they should have. And so we had to take out a pension obligation bond, I believe back in 2015. And so now we have solutions, both because it's the right thing to do, but also because we are legally required to because of those pension obligations. So now not only are we paying into our pension way more than anybody ever thought we would need to, but we're also paying down the debt from having to supplement with bonds for our pension plan. And so if anybody is ever thinking, hey, let me kick the can down the road, we're the poster child for reasons why you should not do that. Our mill rate is very high because of this. We have been putting off costs to the future generations, and unfortunately, we are the future generation. So the pension obviously got us there, and because our pension payments were increasing so much every single year, by the order of about $4 million, the previous administration did debt restructures so that we would only have to pay our interest payment, basically. And so that increased the amount of debt that we have, and increased the debt service payments that we now have to make. So we are on the road to debt service payments that are we're going to be at $31 million in just a couple of years for our debt service payment.
Yeah.
Our medical is another huge cost, and we're trying to bring down costs by going out to bid on our medical. But in every way throughout the budget, my budget shows what it costs to run the town. We can anticipate every document, anticipating optimistic revenues and assuming that our are going to be less than they've ever been. So it's all about budgeting responsibly. And we're actually meeting with the Municipal Finance Advisory Board for the state of Connecticut through OPM. They've been advising us on our finances for a couple of years now. And in our last meeting just last week, they presented our audit and then presented our budget and showed how our budget addresses any concerns in the audit. And they were congratulating us and praising us on the efforts that we've made to stabilize our finances.
Excellent. That's got to feel good. So kind of the flip side to debts and that sort of stuff is, of course, revenue coming in. And one of the problems that makes mill rates in Connecticut so high is that the property tax, which was kind of a regressive tax as far as we see it, is really the only way that towns in Connecticut have to raise money. Over the years, there's been a lot of proposed solutions to this issue: revenue diversification, regionalism, which we talked about a little bit, increased state funding. What do you think would be kind of some of the more effective measures that we could take in battling, this problem of being so reliant on the property tax in Connecticut?
So obviously we need more money from the state of Connecticut. We do have a lot of property that is owned by hospitals and universities, churches. So, that comes right off of our grant list. So it would definitely be helpful to have more pilot funding from the state. And in addition to that, we're doing what we can for economic development. I'm grateful of current programs like the NIPS and the ability to tax cannabis very soon.
You are listening to the Municipal Voice on WNHH 103.5 FM.
Hamden is a first-ring suburb to New Haven, and therefore, it's always been kind of tightly associated with it. And so, no stranger to the idea of regionalism. You work in New Haven all the time, and you mentioned before the animal shelter. Could you talk a little bit more about why something like an animal shelter makes sense as a regional project to work with someone on?
So having an animal shelter is important for any municipality, but we're required to have one because of the size of our municipality. But we only have 2 animal control officers budgeted in Hamden. So it makes sense for us to have additional hands on deck and to share a facility where we're sharing resources, sharing the cost of utilities and the cost of a building. It's expensive. It would cost us over $1 million to build an animal shelter in Hamden. Yeah. But if we can split that cost with New Haven, obviously we're doing a good thing there.
We're so used to our towns in Connecticut, but we are geographically very small. So it's not necessarily that far to share something and to drive that extra mile across the border to share a facility.
It's not even a mile. It's like right over the border.
So it will be very close for doggies and kitties from both sides.
Exactly.
So have any other shared service projects that are in the works right now?
Oh gosh, I can't really think of anything off the top of my head, but we really like to be able to partner with other municipalities, and the way that I have come into office and the way that I run the town is through collaboration. We are constantly getting departments to come out of silos and work together. I'm always open to working with anyone.
Great. Speaking of working with people, one of the other kind of, other than your surrounding towns, another kind of big player for you is Quinnipiac University. And I know that recently you met with the head of Quinnipiac, and their newspaper said it was one of the least contentious meetings in quite a while over there. Do you think you can change the relationship between town and university into more of a positive force for both?
So we have already changed the relationship, obviously, between myself and the university, and changing the relationship between the town and the residents probably will take a little bit longer. But I think it's really important that we both recognize from each side, the importance of each other. Quinnipiac needs a municipality for some of the services that we provide, police and fire department. But we also need them. They're a huge employer in Hamden, and a really good resource for us to have. So as long as we are kind of considering each other and being good neighbors, I think that we can continue a good relationship. And they have a lot of plans over the next couple of years that will bring in a lot of revenue for us. So it's definitely in our interest to keep that relationship thriving.
Definitely. Yeah, some really cool new facilities off of Whitney Avenue over there that I've seen. Hamden is about to officially launch an annual Pride celebration.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what you have in store for that and other celebrations in Hamden?
We actually have a lot of really cool celebrations coming up. So Hamden Fest is first on the docket, and so Hamden Fest is all about business and arts. And so that will be June 11th
Mhm.
at Town Center Park. And we actually just passed an ordinance so that we can sell alcohol, not us specifically, the town, but vendors are able to sell alcohol on town-owned properties. So there will be a beer tent for the first time ever.
Oh, that's cool. Will there be breweries, like some of the local breweries from Hampden there? I
Yeah,
know No
absolutely.
Worries or something is over there, I think.
Yeah, yep. So then we have our Pride Fest. That is going to be pretty exciting. We have a hour. We have just a lot of entertainment planned, a lot of different vendors coming out, and it's going to be a month-long celebration, really,
cool.
where we're going to raise a Pride flag. Right in Hampden, we're going to paint a crosswalk, Pride paint. So we have a lot going on to really showcase Hampden as a very accepting and strong ally for LGBTQ. So we're happy to do all of that.
Yeah.
So that's on June 18th at Town Center Park. And then we also have a Juneteenth event that is still in the works, but we're going to be unveiling a mural
Cool.
For Juneteenth. So there's definitely a lot going on.
That would be very interesting. And do you coordinate, like with the Pride events, do you coordinate with New Haven Pride on something like that? Like, is that something where, you would do it at the same time, or something where you tried not to do it necessarily the same weekend because you don't want to be competing, sort of?
Right. Yeah. So we tried to schedule it so that we wouldn't conflict with any of the other larger events going on throughout the state. We did reach out to kind of get some guidance, because obviously with this being our first one, we want it to be pretty special, and we want a lot of people to attend. We wanted some connections so that we could have awesome vendors and some great entertainment. This work has really been done by a kind of a committee with some really great people on it who are really driving the whole event.
That sounds great. It sounds like you got a good crew of people working on that with you.
Absolutely.
So this is kind of cool. Seems like there's going to be a documentary coming out about Hampden in the future, specifically that's looking at the diverse and progressive government that won last year. Why do you think that's important to be documented?
I think that there are communities across our country who feel like their opinions, their politics are marginalized, and they want to have a seat at the table. And I think that what we've done in Hampden really shows people how they can get a seat at the table, and how their voices and their opinions and their concerns can be brought to light. And really what we did wasn't anything extraordinary other than the amount of work that we put into it. Work that's gone across several years. So if you care enough and you're willing to invest the time, it can be replicated anywhere.
So it's not necessarily the most crazy concept for it, it's just putting in the work is a big part of that, being willing to
absolutely.
put in the effort. Yeah.
And really you have to be connected with the community. So, your concerns need to be the community's concerns.
Listening to everybody is always a good way to go. If we were to boil kind of this episode's themes down, it's usually about moving forward. How do you see Hampden going forward? Are you optimistic about the path that the town is on? And what kind of things do you look forward to tackling in the future?
Yeah, so I'm really optimistic, obviously, because I'm coming into work every day and excited to be here, and I love the people that I get to work with every single day. We've hired some extraordinary people. Our town engineer is new, and he's a Hampden resident. He's doing an awesome job. At any rate, we have a really bright future ahead of us. It's going to take some struggles to get there, some sacrifice, but what we're doing by breaking down the silos and working together, we are making it so that it's easier to get things through the town, removing unnecessary red tape, making it so that people have a positive experience when they come to town hall and have to go through any permitting process. And we're really putting a ton of effort into economic development, making sure that businesses that want to come to Hamden feel valued and supported. And so I think that we have a lot of potential. So I hope that as we people see the value in the work and at least understand that there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like, you got a lot of positive energy going into this, and that the people of Hamden are lucky to have you. Mayor Garrett, thank you so much for speaking with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'd like to thank our guest, Mayor Lauren Garrett. I'd like to thank our premier sponsors, Digital Back Office, Palo Alto Networks, who you can check out at digitalbackoffice.com and paloaltonetworks.com, as well as our sponsors, Gateway Community College and Housatonic Community College. Learn more at gatewayct.edu and housatonic.edu. The Municipal Voice is a co-production by CCM and WNHH 103.5 FM. Kevin Maloney is our executive producer, Christopher Gilson is our producer, Harry Draws on the boards, and I'm Matt Ford, your host. Be sure to check out our Facebook page and give us a like, and watch out for our CCM chat series on our YouTube page.